Disney's D23 Expo is officially in the books, and I have a lot of feelings about it. Hello everybody, welcome. The most anticipated session of the D23 Expo this year was, of course, the Horizons panel, the Disney Experiences Showcase. This is where we find out everything that is coming to the Disney parks and experiences around the world. But the question is, did it live up to expectations? There's no denying that Disney has their foot on the gas. It is pedal to the metal with so many experiences coming to the Disney theme parks in the coming years. $60 billion in investment over a 10-year period, with over $30 million of that going to the theme parks alone. 2 years ago at the D23 Expo in Anaheim, California, we got the biggest, I think one of the biggest years we've ever had at D23. We got absolutely huge announcements, and despite the fact that they said that it was going to be no blue sky announcements, all, shovels in the dirt, things are moving, land is being excavated, some of the things they announced felt sort of blue sky. They just hadn't really put a lot of details to it. And then last year at Disney's Destination D23 in Walt Disney World, that particular event was almost completely devoid of any park announcements, which really left all of us sort of expecting that this year at D23 in Anaheim, this was going to be the big year where they'd finally give us some additional announcements on the things that they announced 2 years ago. So here we all were waiting, D23 Horizon Showcase finally about to start. We're all waiting with bated breath. And then 2 hours later, after this session was over, what did we really end up with? Well, in the words of Jonah Jameson, headlines, national coverage, so don't screw this up. But that's really felt like that's what we primarily got out of this session, was just the headlines, just those sort of teasers, but we really didn't get the article itself. We got the headline, but not really the article, not the details we were all expecting. We got lots of potatoes, but no meat. Or is it, we got lots of meat and no potatoes? This is pretty much the worst analogy ever made. Napoleon, anyone can even know that. Most of it felt like information we already knew. Or so we thought. Huh? Spaceship Earth reference, anybody? After the event was over, we actually started getting more details after the event. And I'm going to talk about some of those details right now, but I was kind of sitting there thinking, why didn't we get these details during the panel? They could have shown us some of these things, and I feel like it would have alleviated a lot of the that kind of happened by the end of that showcase. I really just don't know what they were thinking. So let's get into the best and the worst things that came out at D23. Let's talk about the best. Number one for me, the first one I want to talk about is the Yeti. The Yeti, the broken, busted disco Yeti that we have been waiting years for them to fix. Which, it's so crazy to me that one of the best announcements was a maintenance fix. It's not even a new attraction. It's not some a wild expansion. It's literally just a maintenance fix, a bug fix, if you will. And I'm super hyped about it. But I'm finally, I got to experience that Yeti attraction in its prime when it worked for a week or something ridiculous, and it was such a cool experience. You could see the Yeti, it was lit up better, and the whole thing moved, and it just was phenomenal. And then I went back after it was busted, and I'm getting this weird disco experience. Everything's pitch black, I can't see the Yeti, and I'm like, what the heck is this? And we've been living this with this for years. And so I am excited that they are finally going to be fixing this problem. I really do appreciate the fact that they made a complete joke about it, that they were able to actually laugh at themselves during the panel and talk about the disco Yeti thing. I think that's actually kind of funny. But I'm excited that finally it seems like the technology has caught up to the problem. This is going to enable them to fix it without tearing the whole thing apart. My understanding was it was such a ridiculous amount of work needed to actually fix this animatronic, because it goes all the way down to the foundation of Expedition Everest. They just really couldn't do it feasibly for cost reasons. But I feel like now with the improvements that they've made to animatronics, probably have lighter weight materials, it's not as heavy. I think they're going to be able to rip that animatronic out, put a new animatronic in that's going to have better movement, better motion, and it's going to be much lighter weight, and hopefully they don't have that same problem. Moving on now is Piston Peak. I thought the Piston Peak update was phenomenal. I thought it was this is one of the best moments of the panel for sure. We got some additional ride details on both of the attractions that are coming to Piston Peak, which I am excited for. The first one is Cars Ridge Run Rally, which is interesting. It doesn't have the word race in the name of this attraction, and they've taken that out of the concept art. There was originally a concept art where it showed two vehicles side by side, sort of racing towards a finish line. That has now since been removed in the new concept art. It definitely looks like it's single file. A little bit disappointing they didn't give us any update on the actual vehicles themselves. I feel like they showcased in a previous D23 more about the ride vehicles than they did in this D23, which is pretty wild to me. I would have expected they came out with some new information. We did get to see some like models of the vehicles, but nothing really about the ride system itself. We are expecting it to be a tracked ride. It does look like there is in fact a track attachment. You can see it in some of the models that were on display, but it does look like it's going to be single file, even though the Radiator Springs Racers does have a portion where it is side by side, but then there's single file as well. We didn't see anything about a racing component, so it seems like that might have been removed. And with the name Cars Ridge Run Rally, I feel like that is taking out, and they even said something about racing your best time, or like, you know, trying to do your best lap versus like racing other vehicles. I feel like that infers that this is like a rally run where you're just trying to have a fast run, not necessarily where you're trying to race other vehicles. We also got updated details on the second attraction, which we've been talking about for a while, but we got a name for it. Miss Fritter's Daredevil Spin Along. This is a small flat ride. It looks very similar to Mater's Junkyard Jamboree or Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters. It's definitely going to be a ride vehicle, some sort of like little sort of spinning, you know, casual, almost alien swirling saucer over at Hollywood Studios. A fun little attraction. I think it looks really cool. But one of my favorite things at Piston Peak was found in the model. They didn't necessarily talk about it, which I would have liked to have seen a little bit more on in the D23 Horizons panel, is sort of the callbacks to the Tom Sawyer Island. First and foremost is the Harper's Mill incorporation. They changed the finish line to the attraction. It did look different in the past, in past concept art. Now it looks like they've actually taken the Harper's Mill that was on Tom Sawyer Island, or reconstructed it, and you've got Lightning McQueen and Mater in there sort of greeting you. I like that they brought that mill back in there. You've got the barrel bridges, which they've come out and said we want to try to reuse actual components of the original barrel bridge over on Tom Sawyer Island. We've seen those in the concept art. I've talked about them before, but it's good to see that they're still in. Mike Fink's keelboat dock, that is also pretty cool if it in fact is what they're going for. That was this old attraction that closed in like 2001, where you could go on these little boats on the river of Rivers of America. But it seems like the actual boat dock there, the way it looks very similar to this like restroom building that they're putting in right next to sort of Haunted Mansion as you head into Piston Peak and Villains area. And then Miss Fritter's building that she is basically in, that's like kind of the entrance for that second attraction, does have similar visual style to me to Fort Langhorne, which was part of Tom Sawyer Island. I like the visual of that, so it seems like maybe they're just trying to bring some of that aesthetic in from Tom Sawyer Island, and I think that's awesome. Another big win for me, one of the best moments, was the Monstropolis update. I think it could have been better, but I still think it was one of the best moments. We obviously have the name, Monstropolis is the name of the area. One of the biggest updates that we were expecting, because it was teased prior, is the name and the information about the show that's going to be coming to the Glob building, the replacement for Muppet Vision 3D. And it's got big shoes to fill with Muppet Vision 3D, and it looks like it's going to be pretty cool. The name of the show is Welcome to Monstropolis, and it's going to have an original song in it created by Randy Newman, who was the original, did the original music for Monsters, Inc. And this show looks really cool to me. I like the fact that it has what I see in this sort of concept art as animatronics sort of off to the sides of the stage, and integration with an on-screen component. No idea if it's going to be 3D or not 3D, but it looks really interesting. And the story of this, what I can see, looks like it's going to be them welcoming humans to Monstropolis, which is interesting because the original, when they talked about Human Day, was sort of like bringing humans into Monstropolis to make monsters more comfortable with humans because they were fearful of humans, obviously in Monsters Inc. And now this whole new world to them, they want to make monsters more comfortable being around humans, so they're welcoming humans in for Human Day. And this particular show seems like it is going to be basically some sort of like maybe kickoff day or kickoff event for Human Day, where they are doing a live maybe broadcast up on stage, and they've got humans in the audience, and they're welcoming you to Human Day, and they're going to be broadcasting this all across Monstropolis and basically kicking off the big celebration for Human Day. A couple of other things they announced was the Monsters University Club, which is a little area a little building that we don't really know too much about. There's the Scareporium, which is going to be basically a emporium type at Magic Kingdom. I'm assuming merchandise building. We got an update to Harryhausen's. It's being built. We kind of knew what it was going to be, but this really gives the details. It is going to have basically the sushi octopus in the center. It's going to be an animatronic. Looks really cool, just like the movie. And it sounds like it's going to be a sit-down, fancier type restaurant. It does look like it's going to be sushi, sort of fish, seafood inspired. So a proper replacement for Mama Melrose, which was more of a sit-down restaurant. We're going to be getting Harryhausen's. And then we got a little bit of an update on the Monsters Inc. door coaster attraction. They did showcase a new animatic for the loading and unloading of the vehicles. The thing is, though, for me, that I feel like that we needed, I don't know why they didn't show more. I know that they got a ways to go now, but I know they have what this attraction is going to look like on the inside. I'm surprised that they didn't show us a little bit more. We didn't really get any additional concept art for the actual coaster attraction. And this sort of loading animatic that they created is really just the same as the black and white animatic that we got at the previous D23, except it has some colors and it's a little crisper, but ultimately it's pretty much the same. They did talk about how you're going to be lifted like 40 feet from the loading zone within 4 seconds, and then you're going to launch out into the door factory. But I feel like they really should have shown us more. I don't know why. Maybe we'll get some more information in the future here soon, but that was a little disappointing. And then the biggest thing that I think is disappointing for me, well, maybe not disappointing is the right word, but they're replacing Pizza Rizzo's with Archie's Scare Pig Pizza. So basically changing the name. I guess the theme is changing a little bit, but it looks like it's basically going to be pizza, maybe the meatball subs, the same food that was at Pizza Rizzo's. And for me, don't get me wrong, big fan of Pizza Rizzo's. If they hadn't moved the meatball sub to Catalina Eddie's, I probably would have crashed out because I love the meatball sub. So at least it's still in Hollywood Studios. And the pizza's fine, but I love Pizza Rizzo's. The problem for me, though, is that they're just updating the theme without really changing, it seems like, the food. And for me, that's a missed opportunity. I feel like they could have done a really cool quick service experience. I've been talking for a while, like a Minions Cafe over at Universal Studios, where it's got like themed Monsters Inc. foods, like maybe like Super Nintendo world over at Epic Universe. So all the food is sort of themed to Monstropolis and Monsters Inc. Now, it could still be that, but it just sounds like it's going to be pizza. So I feel like this would have become like the big #1, and it's very large. That restaurant is huge. And so they have tons of space. They could have made this like the marquee, quick service restaurant in all of Hollywood Studios. And instead, it sounds like it's just going to be a slightly updated Pizza Rizzo's. Now let's move over to Tropical Americas over there in Animal Kingdom. Big update on Indiana Jones. A few things for Indiana Jones. We got the name of the attraction, Indiana Jones and the Myth of the Jade Serpent. And I love the fact that the serpent is basically the enemy in this attraction. As you know, Indiana Jones hates snakes. He hates snakes. He's not really afraid of pretty much anything, but he hates snakes. And so we got some new artwork. We got a little bit on the storyline. The storyline is about this passageway that leads into the underworld where there is a protector. And of course, the protector had to be a serpentine creature, some sort of snake, and all manner of fun is going to take place on this attraction. We did get some models. We got a little bit of information and visuals on this and some of the work in progress. And Harrison Ford then kind of came on the screen and talked a little bit about how they're going to be using his likeness for the animatronic in this park. This is the first time they're using that. They weren't able to use it for the original Indiana Jones attraction over in Disneyland. And so they're actually going to be able to get the licensing squared away so they can use Harrison Ford's likeness in this new attraction, which I think is going to be really cool. But one of the worst things for me was seeing like the empty hallways and things of the previous dinosaur attraction. And I just saw that hallway where you're kind of like, heading into the attraction on the ride vehicle there, and it was gutted, and it kind of gutted me when I saw that, because I was like, oh man, I miss dinosaur, and it's all torn apart in there, and it made me really sad. But I'm excited for the new Indiana Jones. We also got an update on the new Encanto attraction. We did get a name for that: Antonio's Fiesta de Encanto. Obviously, this is all going to be about Antonio. I'm kind of cool with the Antonio thing. Antonio, his power is basically the ability to communicate with animals. It makes sense for me. Animal Kingdom, communicate with animals. Lots of animals are going to be in there. We did get some updated concept art. We got to see a pretty cool shot of like the ride vehicle going up the staircase, and it's really interesting because there was a patent that was filed recently by Disney, and people have been speculating. I mean, that patent for this, like, for what they call the elevation change illusion through set design, meaning it feels like you're going up or down in the attraction, but you're not actually moving. The set is moving around you, which, we've seen that before in other attractions, but apparently they have their own way of doing it here. I'm going to tell you that that sort of like stick drawn patent visual looks pretty much identical to this shot that they gave us for Encanto going up the staircase. So I have a feeling that is in fact what that's for. But overall, not too many details. Still don't know if it's a trackless attraction. We've been saying it could be trackless, but I keep hearing that it might be a tracked attraction, like some sort of like, I keep saying the scoop ride system where it can kind of reticulate, but maybe it's still attached to a track, or maybe it is a free floating sort of free roaming trackless attraction that also has just like a scoop ride system, but we don't really know for sure, and I'm surprised they didn't give us more details on that. But I do like the way that the ride vehicles look and the storyline about it, where basically the casita, the house, is creating these ride vehicles out of all the objects in the house. So you see things like bookcases and suitcases and stuff. They're all jammed together to form like what the ride vehicle looks like. But the ride vehicles themselves are shaped and sized very similar to Rise of the Resistance ride vehicles. So I don't know. We'll see what we end up getting. Last thing on Tropical Americas was the carousel update. 22 handcrafted creatures are going to be part of this carousel. We did get the name El Carousel de los Animalitos, and that pretty much rounds out Tropical Americas. So I feel like that was one of the best announcements of the night. A couple of more of the best announcements, and we're going to get some of the worst. The next one on my list is Space Mountain Earthrise coming to Tokyo Disneyland. We've talked about this a lot in previous videos, and they looked amazing from the outside, but I really liked the videos and the visuals that they gave us of the interior finally, and it had this like circulating kind of light and this launch point, and it just looked really cool on the inside of that attraction. So I was pumped for that. And then the last thing that I'm the most excited for that I was not expecting was an update to the Space Mountain in Disneyland Paris, which was badly needed because the version they have today, they really kind of just fumbled it. The original version of that Space Mountain was vastly superior to what is there now, Hyperspace Mountain. They're changing it back to the original name for that Space Mountain attraction, and that name is Space Mountain de la Terre a la Lune. That is basically from the Earth to the Moon translated, basically inspired by the beloved Jules Verne stories, bringing back the original attraction score. They quite honestly should have never changed it. I rode the original version of that Space Mountain, and it was phenomenal. I love the sort of steampunk, copper, bronze design of it. Now let's jump into the worst announcements, and the number one thing for me, the worst, is the Avatar update at Disney's California Adventure, or should I say the lack of update for Disney California Adventure. They did give us a model on the floor show, but that, quite frankly, that model looks the same pretty much as the model that we already had that came from last year's event. So to me, they haven't really given us a whole lot of new things. Yes, there was some additional concept art, but we kind of already knew what it was. We did get a ride vehicle update, which does look very similar to Pirates of the Caribbean Shanghai ride vehicle system. But overall, they didn't give us enough information to know how big is this place going to be? Is it just one attraction, or is it going to be more attractions? In a previous session, they nodded to the fact that like this is just the beginning and we'll have more, but they didn't have any details in the Horizon showcase about Avatar. Is it really going to happen? No details, no dates, and more importantly, has it been downsized? The second worst announcement for me was Spaceship Earth, the update coming to Epcot. Not because it's a bad update, because Spaceship Earth has been direly in need of a refurb. I mean, it needs to be changed, not just like the story of it, but the ride vehicles itself. I mean, that thing, I swear I can't ride that thing anymore unless it stops at least 6 times. It breaks down, it's super jittery, it sounds busted, like you can barely hear the audio because you have all this like rickety, rackety stuff going on in the attraction. It just needs an update, and now they're going to be changing it from communications and going through time and the evolution of communications to the evolution or the theme of human connection. So I think human connection is pretty broad, so they can do a lot with it. But this is why I say it was the worst announcement. They kind of just chucked it in. There was no concept art, no information really on what it's going to look like, what it's going to be. They did say they're going to keep the sort of like going through time element. It's about human connection. That's really all we got. Now let's move on to a new category, which I'm calling the best, while simultaneously also being the worst announcements. Number 1 has to be Figment. It's definitely the best announcement because they're redoing Figment. We're finally getting an update to the Figment attraction, Journey into Imagination, and they are bringing back the Dream Finder. So from that perspective, I think that was a killer best announcement. Here's why it's also simultaneously the worst announcement. Because they gave us no details. So the question I have is, Neil Patrick Harris, is he going to be the new Dream Finder? Interestingly enough, they started the entire Horizon showcase with a number with Neil Patrick Harris leading it, basically called I Want to Be an Animatronic. Neil Patrick Harris singing about how he wants to be an animatronic. And then we end the show with Neil Patrick Harris coming out and saying, hold up, you can't shut down the show yet. You promised me if I hosted this event, you would bring back my favorite animatronic. And then he turns around and it's Neil Patrick Harris dressed as Dream Finder. We've got Figment, and that basically goes, the crowd goes wild because everyone's like, yes, Figment announcement. But we also got no confirmation that Neil Patrick Harris is going to be the Dream Finder. Is there going to be a Figment movie of some kind that's been rumored? And will Neil Patrick Harris be the star of that? So for me, aside from the fact that we know there's a Figment thing coming, there was no details. The next announcement, which I consider to be best and worst, is the Tomorrowland update coming to Disneyland. I think this is much needed. Tomorrowland at Disneyland it's busted. I mean, it is busted. Out of all the areas in Disneyland, I think it's the most busted. It needs a big improvement. So I think it's great that they're finally going to be putting some love and attention into Disneyland. What does that mean? That's why it's the worst. We have absolutely no idea. It's probably not going to happen until they finish up some of the Avengers stuff over in DCA, but it does look like they're finally going to do something with it. And now for my biggest, best and worst, it's got to be Villains Land. And you're going to be like, wait, hold on a second. Why is this your worst? I can see why it's the best. Here's why. We got all kinds of new information about Villains Land, which I am here for because I'm tired of just talking about one single piece of concept art. So we finally got some new stuff, which is great. But I will say the name of it, which they finally revealed to us after all this waiting, the name of it is Villains Land. Not the Twisted Forest or any other number of different things they could have called this place. Their rationale for this was that a lot of the areas in Magic Kingdom already are called things like Adventureland and Frontierland and Tomorrowland. So I get it. It kind of makes sense. But hello, Piston Peak, Main Street USA, Liberty Square. Not everything is called something land. So I feel like Villains Land fine, but it's just weird to me that they couldn't come up with anything better and they just finally landed on Villains Land. But they did give us a story, which is kind of interesting to me. Let's talk a little bit about the story. Basically, you're going to enter into Villains Land through this forest, so it's going to kind of match up with the Piston Peak and the exit area of Piston Peak leading into Villains Land. You're going to go into this forest, but it starts to transition into this like twisted forest and all this like evil realm. And basically, this is because there is a wishing well. Either the wishing well is in a forest, or maybe the wishing well is in the town square, which I've been kind of hypothesizing based on the layout of Villains Land. In previous videos, there could be some sort of like town center and maybe some sort of like well in the center, or maybe a fountain in the center. And so they talk about wishing well, but this wishing well was poisoned, went wrong, and basically exploded everywhere, for lack of a better word, because a really evil, sinister character made a horrible wish with this well and transformed everything into this grotesque landscape. What's interesting to me is that the well is like the centerpiece of their story, and it does say you're going to see a torn asunder well in this land. Does that sound like any other dark, villainous kind of area to you? Because it kind of sounds a little bit to me like Dark Universe over at Epic Universe. Right in the center of Darkmoor is a well, an ominous well that has red glowing stuff, which is basically supposed to represent bloodiness, because basically they feed the vampires that live in the catacombs under Darkmoor by dumping blood down the well, and that's what the center of that town is. And now we have another well for Villains Land, which could possibly be in a town center or could be in a forest area, but either way, it's a centerpiece of the story. That's interesting to me. So moving on now, we did get an update of the Maleficent roller coaster. So all the rumors about it being Emperor's New Groove have now been debunked, and I could not be more excited about it, because I was not here, honestly, for Emperor's New Groove. Not because I don't like the film, not because I don't think Pull the Lever Kronk would be good. It's just the visual aesthetic of Emperor's New Groove, to me, didn't fit in Villains Land, didn't fit in the concept art, and it would have changed the concept so dramatically that they may as well just thrown it out the window and started over. So I'm actually glad that they kept it. They talk about this roller coaster being a high thrill coaster, which to me doesn't seem super high thrill. Seems to me more like it's going to be a Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or Big Thunder Mountain thrills. It looks more ominous, but it seems to be like it's going to be a lot smoother and not nearly as high thrill as... It's not going to be a Velocicoaster, I can tell you that for sure. There's only a lap bar restraint. It doesn't look like a super advanced lap bar restraint. It looks like a standard Disney roller coaster to me. So I think it's going to be relaxed, but have a ride height requirement. I want to talk now about the second attraction that they announced, which is the Mirror Realm Dark Ride. Now, what's interesting is they gave us a piece of concept art here, and we can't tell if it's a boat ride or a dark ride. It looks a lot like a boat ride attraction to me. It looks like a boat, but I do have to admit that the ride vehicle itself does have a lot of similarities to the trackless Peter Pan attraction called Peter Pan's Neverland Adventure over in Tokyo Disney Sea. Could just be some sort of like mist effect that's surrounding that ride vehicle, not in fact water. I mean, they call it a dark ride. They don't call it a boat ride. If you look at the vehicle itself, it's sort of that standard like 4 to 5 person per row, 3 rows, very similar to some of the other rides like the Scoop ride vehicle system over at the Spiderland and Islands of Adventure. So it could be a new ride system similar to the Peter Pan attraction, similar to the Scoop ride system. It also could be some sort of new boat that is similar and is still going to be some sort of Pirates of the Caribbean, the Sunken Treasure over in Shanghai. It could still be a boat ride, just with a new ride vehicle. It's definitely not the standard Pirates of the Caribbean boat ride. It also looks like it has a lap bar restraint, which the boats in Pirates of the Caribbean don't have lap bars. And so it does seem like it's possible this could be a dark ride that just so happens to look like a boat, or it could be a boat ride. So the story of this dark ride attraction is it is going to be hosted by the Magic Mirror, and it is going to have a lot of different Disney villains in it. We've got Cruella, Jafar, Dr. Facilier, Scar, and Ursula. And now we know that the 3 main villains that they talked about in the Villains Land are Cruella and Dr. Facilier, as well as the Evil Queen. And then, of course, we have Maleficent represented as part of the coaster. So those are some of the key villains that we're going to be getting in this land. But I like the fact that this dark ride is going to have a bunch of different villains, and we've talked about possible storylines about how it's going to work. There was originally a villains ride that was pitched where it was kind of like all these villains were getting together and they were talking about how they're tired of being beaten by the heroes and they're strategizing how to work together to beat the heroes. And we stumble into this conversation and then all heck breaks loose and we try to escape. That storyline with Magic Mirror, that really could still work, but we'll see. So all that to say, concept art looks great, looks phenomenal. Here's why I said it was also simultaneously the worst announcement. You know, here's why. Because they didn't show us all the information that they had during the showcase. What are you doing to me? You're killing me, Smalls. They literally showed A brand new video the next day, a new part in our Pixie episode was dropped where they had all sorts of information, and some of it was like repeat stuff for Monsters Inc., Monstropolis, and Piston Peak. But they gave us some detailed information and a model of the Maleficent roller coaster. Literally showed the model, showed the track layout, showed it winding and twisting. Why did they not show us that during the showcase? I have absolutely no idea. And I have to say that model looks fantastic, looks very grand in scale. We know they said it's going to be on the scale, that this land is going to be on the scale of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So to me, this attraction is looking as big in scale as Flight of Passage in Pandora or Expedition Everest over in Animal Kingdom. It looks huge. Forced perspective is going to make it look even bigger. You've got what looks like Forbidden Mountain sort of rising out of the ground. You've got Maleficent's castle up there. The dragon somewhere is going to fit in with it. I just think it's going to be amazing. I hope the dragon spits fire. But in this video, you can see sort of this like thorny bramble sort of winding its way through. But in this video, you can see the roller coaster track itself. And what's interesting to me, there's one particular little hill. So even though we said it's a two-person standard-looking roller coaster ride vehicle that Disney loves to use, it's not going to be super intense, but it's going to be high thrill. There's one particular part in the model, I'll show it here, where it looks like a super crazy hill slash bend. And I don't know if that's just because the model is like kind of busted or if that's really a planned turn in this attraction, because if that's in the ride, then this might actually be a little bit more intense than we're thinking. The last thing that to me was crazy that they didn't talk about, they didn't give us an update at all on the Abu Dhabi park, so I guess nothing to say there. I was hoping they were going to talk about Animal Kingdom, some sort of new night show. I mean, once you open up Tropical Americas, people are going to want to stay in the parks later. They need to be, you need to be able to experience Pandora at night. I don't know why they didn't do some sort of nighttime show, so that was a disappointment. And then we didn't hear anything about Space Mountain being refurbished at Magic Kingdom, and I'm not surprised, to be honest, because and I said this in my video when I talked about Space Mountain possibly being refurbed or completely reimagined. I said this from the beginning, which is they're not going to do it until they finish Piston Peak. Once Piston Peak is done, and maybe when they start Villains, we're going to start getting some more Tomorrowland transformation like Space Mountain. I was hoping maybe they'd give us some news, but I'm expecting to hear about that maybe in the next year or two. So that's all I've got. Those were the best and the worst. I would love to hear what you think. There was a lot of other announcements, but I didn't want to put everything in here. Those are my top, those are my best and worst. What do you think? Did I miss anything? Are you excited about things I didn't talk about? Are you also thinking, why didn't they give us more detail? I would have loved more. Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Be sure, of course, to like, subscribe, and share this content. And of course, until I see you next time, the Noble Way is the easy way. Bye-bye, everybody.